Hey, I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney.
We started this true crime podcast over a glass of wine and quickly turned from true crime listeners into true crime advocates.
So get comfy, pop a cork, and grab a glass because we have work to do.
This is Cults, Crimes, and Cabernet.
Some content may be unsuitable for sensitive listeners. Discretion is advised.
As you may know, we are continuing our series on the mystery of Ladybird Lake in Austin, Texas. Jason John was not the first man pulled from Ladybird Lake, or the most recent. Whitney and I spoke with Jason's mother, Elsie John, about her son's death and the circumstances surrounding that night.
Jason, as a young child, was the most obedient and the well-behaved kid any parent can ask for. All his elementary school teachers used to tell me that, we are blessed to be his teachers. You know, he was one of the most loving, caring, and empathetic person anyone could meet or have known.
Jason John, also simply known as JJ, was born November 25th, 1992, in Port Chester, New York, to parents John C. Matai and Elsie John. Jason was the middle child of three boys. Rinju, his older brother, and Justin, his younger brother, were always a close-knit group growing up. Jason was described as a well-behaved and independent child. He was also very intelligent and actually received a full scholarship to the prestigious Brunswick School in Connecticut for his high school years. This school has a 29% acceptance rate, so to say it's difficult to get in would be an understatement. And then to get a full ride scholarship is even more spectacular. Jason loved to learn, was inquisitive, and always asked questions. After graduating high school, Jason attended NYU, where he would receive a bachelor's degree in business administration. Jason John would move to Florida after graduation and start working. During COVID, he was able to work remotely, which propelled his sense of adventure forward. No longer did he have to stay in one place to make a living. He could travel and see the sights just as he wanted to, and that is exactly what he did. Jason would pick a city, rent an Airbnb, and live in that location for about a month before he picked up and found the next place to visit. That is until he stumbled upon Austin, Texas.
And then he did mention he loved Austin, and that is where he wanted to live the rest of his life.
Like Jason's mother said, Jason loved Austin, and it became his home. So much of a home that he adopted a dog and named her Ruffles. Jason was making a life and setting down roots in Austin. He had a girlfriend and was just promoted to the position of senior director at his workplace. One of the youngest people to ever do this. He had a passion for adventure and life, but it would be taken way too soon. On Saturday, February 4th, 2023, Jason went out with some friends on Rainy Street in Austin. Nothing out of the norm for this man, enjoying his night out. Around 2 a.m., he was going to make the quick 18-minute walk back to his apartment, but he would never make it. Every Sunday, his family would have a weekly call. Jason didn't answer this particular Sunday, but this wasn't anything the family was too concerned about, because sometimes the adult children would get busy or the time difference would mess up everyone's plans.
Or with the way he was adventurous, he could be out on a hike or where he doesn't have cell phone service or, just being outdoorsy.
Yes, exactly. His older brother lived in Dubai, and then his family lives in New York. And then here we have Jason in Texas, and he's 30. He's grown. His parents or his brother didn't find this completely unusual that he didn't answer. they figured he would call back whenever he saw that the family called to catch up, because this was their typical Sunday. All three sons would call the parents and have a chat about their week. My kids better be calling me every Sunday when they are 30. So it wasn't out of the norm. So when the brother in Dubai gets the call from his mom and his mom's like, oh yeah, Jason didn't answer, no one batted an eyelash at this. But what they did find very strange is that Jason left his dog home alone all day on Sunday. They thought that was what was weird. Out of everything, he would never leave this dog for hours on end by herself. So when friends couldn't get a hold of him either Sunday evening, they called the family saying, hey, have you heard from Jason? And that he hasn't been home. This is when the family gets concerned. So it did not take very long before the missing persons report was filed.
And people may say that it's strange that they noticed the dog first. Austin is a very dog-friendly city. Everywhere you go, your dog is welcome. I mean, almost every restaurant is a dog-friendly restaurant. So people take their dogs literally everywhere here.
Exactly. And how close Jason was to this dog. And it was, I believe he had just got it and it was a puppy, not have ruffles for very long. He would never leave her for hours. That was just absolutely out of the question. So his parents became concerned at that point. And I believe they tried to file a missing persons report, but they were kind of getting the runaround because it hadn't been 24 hours. You know how police like to say you can't file it. They didn't know where to file it. Remember, the family is out of state. So it was an issue from the beginning. Right away, the family from New York and Dubai, they all get on a plane to come to Austin, Texas to aid in this search because they weren't getting very far with the police. They went to the bars to get the surveillance footage. They spoke with the unhoused people in the area to get any information that they could on what happened to their loved one that night.
The fabric of our tightly knit, loving family is now frayed. There is a piece of our hearts that has been ripped off and never can be replaced.
The footage at one bar shows Jason his happy-go-lucky self. He didn't appear to be overly intoxicated. He is seen chatting with one of the bouncers of this establishment, giving a fist bump and laughing at something. He wasn't staggering or stumbling. He just looked like his normal self, according to this footage. When the family spoke with the people in the area, they felt like something wasn't adding up, especially with one person in particular. The family would learn that someone fell into Ladybird Lake that night, and a bystander would jump into the water to try to rescue them. But this attempt would be unsuccessful. A person would go to a nearby business of the Holiday Inn to call 911. So police and authorities knew right that same night that someone fell into Ladybird Lake or was in Ladybird Lake at one point. According to the Austin Travis County EMS Twitter page, they stated workers responded to East Avenue near the I-35 bridge around 2:30 a.m. A water rescue was initiated after someone reportedly went under the water and a bystander attempted to rescue them. The Good Samaritan was actually treated for hypothermia. The Austin Fire Department joined in their efforts and a rescue boat was launched. Rescuers also searched by air with drones for about an hour before they ended their efforts. This was all on the night that Jason went missing. With it being so dark out in this area, there was little hope of finding this person who would turn out to be Jason John that night. When we spoke to Elsie John, she told us that Jason didn't know how to swim and he would never go near the water. Not sure if this was a fear or he knew his limitations. He wasn't about to go to somewhere where he could be in danger.
The way she talked is he's much more a mountain person than a beach person. Everyone always says, which one are you, the mountain or the beach? He liked to hike and go out into nature that way, not near water.
Yes. He was very cautious about water, and he wasn't a person that would take unnecessary risks. Like you said, he knew what he liked, he knew his limitations, and water happened to be one. In the surveillance footage, Jason wasn't staggering drunk. So how did he get into the water? Elsie has been outspoken when it comes to the local police and their very quick investigation they conducted before marking Jason's death as an accidental drowning and closing the case.
According to the APD, it says there is no foul play.
The family stated in an interview with local media that it took police 6 days to actually start investigating. And I don't know if they made the connection that the person that fell in the water that night was Jason John, or if they were looking at other possible scenarios. Because I just don't understand how they knew someone fell into the water, but it still took 8 days of searching with sonar, helicopters, drones, and divers to find him. I cannot understand how we talked about before. This is a pretty calm lake, really. It's not even really a lake, but it's calm. It's not rushing rivers going somewhere else.
No, the section that is known as Ladybird Lake is a section of the Colorado River, but it does not have there's no flowing. It's very calm, and there's a little bit of movement in the water on a windy day, but there's no rushing of water through here. Texas is very flat, so there is no water runoff from a mountain that is pushing things downhill. It's just a calm body of water, which is why so many people paddleboard on it and kayak on it and canoe on it. It's chill.
Yes. And if you've ever been paddleboarding, you need the calmest water possible, not to fall off of those things.
Yes.
Any debris or anything that is in the water typically wouldn't go crazy far. Would you agree?
I agree.
And it's not that deep. I've read the deepest part of it is 18 feet. But towards the bank, people say on the internet, various Facebook groups saying that it's 2, 3, 4 feet deep max. If you happen to get into the water, you're in the water because you're wet. All you have to do is stand up.
There's several places. It's lake water, so it's not clear by any means. It's very dirty water. But there's several places that you can see the bottom of the lake bed because the water is so shallow. People have you sent me a picture earlier today or yesterday of where someone had thrown one of those lime scooters into the water and you could see it.
So I cannot understand how it took 8 days to find Jason in the water.
Or a week to find Martin. I'm still blown away.
Very weird. But yeah, like you said, those scooters, who knows if people actually threw them into the lake or if they accidentally had fallen in. I don't know. On February 13th, the family learned of police activity at the lake. And with this being the location that Jason was last seen in, they got there as quickly as possible. Authorities had a section of the lake blocked off with police tape, and I could only imagine they knew at this point that their beloved son was not coming home alive. It would be confirmed that the person pulled from Ladybird Lake was 30-year-old Jason John. Jason is found, but so many questions are left unanswered. And the family is so angry. They do not believe the autopsy report that stated Jason died of an accidental drowning.
I know for sure my son has no reason to commit suicide. He had a successful career, a good job, 2 brothers, loving parents, girlfriend, and extended families. There was nothing in his life which was going on that he needs to jump into the river, into the lake. And I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I educated my children from an young age. When you get anxious, what to do. When you get nervous, what to do. If you get into any stress, how you deal with stress, how you ventilate your feelings, how you express your concerns. I educated all my 3 boys to be a gentleman out there for themselves and the community. And all my 3 boys were very well behaved. Then all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks, another person's body is at the lake. Then after 2 weeks, another person's body is at the lake. So this is like you have a trauma and it is a fresh wound. Even before the wound is healed, when you get the wound inflicted over and over, you are reliving that trauma. Mm-hmm. And this has been unbearable. As a parent, as a citizen of this country, I have, and my husband, we as a family, we as parent, we have the right to know what exactly happened to our son. And we don't want this to happen to anybody else. When we held the vigil, I had multiple interviews and we said, I said, my older son said, my husband said, we all said, we don't want another family going through this. But this is not stopping. This is like an ongoing thing. But one thing I can tell you, I will fight for my right. I will fight for my son. As long as I am breathing, I am going to be fighting for this. My compassion and my mourning and my sorrow, slowly, now it is turning into an anger for some reason.
And his mother made it very clear that she is not going to stop looking into what happened to her son and for changes to be made to the trail along Ladybird Lake. Jason's brother, Rinju, stated, "We want that trail to be lit up. It's hard to believe in 2023 that the entire trail has no cameras on it. There's very little lighting. It's incredibly dark over there, and that has to be fixed and has to be changed." The 2021 Safety and Mobility Study of the Ann and Roy Butler Hike and Bike Trail, that is the trail that goes along Ladybird Lake, it did recognize in this study that the trail had minimal lighting. It also pointed to the following factors as to why, a few being wildlife conservation, they didn't want the light pollution, and of course, the cost. Austin is such a booming tourist destination. I am sure they can afford lighting and cameras at the bare minimum. Elsie is still trying to get answers. She has been unable to even get a copy of the autopsy report. She explained to us that she keeps getting the runaround, call this person, email these people, and they'll give it to you, with little to no success. She lives out of state, which makes things even more difficult. Her oldest son stated to local media that she has even considered moving to Austin because she is so passionate about making sure tragic events like this do not happen to anyone else.
But, my heart and my prayers goes out to all those people who have found in the lake and all the unresolved cases.
And since Jason's body has been recovered, there has been another male in his 30s pulled from the lake. And Elsie will go on to talk about how this just keeps bringing up all of the trauma her family has experienced over the last few months and of losing her own son, because people just keep dying.
Initially we were planning to bring him to New York because he was born in New York, raised in New York. He spent so many years, 25 plus years in New York. So since he loved Austin, we buried him at the Baghdad Cemetery in Austin.
Jason John was buried on February 18th in the town he loved so much. His family made their way back to New York, but they will continue to advocate for change and hopefully find out what really happened that night on Rainey Street and on Ladybird Lake.
Every article that I read blows my mind further and further of how can police think that this is just people falling in a lake.
Exactly. And every article just makes me more and more angry that the families are the ones that have to go do the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
I get not being open with the media and the public.
Sure.
Police need to be open with the families. They need to give them some kind of information that helps them understand that they are working on it, if they are actually working on it. Because as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't look like much has happened in any of the cases.
Correct. There is some legislation happening right now that I actually saw on Twitter yesterday about how they're hoping to change laws that allow families to get the documents before court. Because a lot of these active investigations and active court cases, family members don't even get their loved ones' autopsy reports until they're at trial.
That is ridiculous. Sorry.
How can you conduct your own investigation? How could you ask the questions that need to be asked before you're at that point?
And so many people don't know that they have a right to these documents, regardless of what the police say. They have a right to these documents and they have a right to know. It boggles my mind. And I mean, just like Elsie John, how it's been, 2.5 months since her son has died and she still cannot get the autopsy.
Because the autopsy has been completed. So it's just ridiculous that they can't get the paperwork to her. So we are working with PD to try to get that paperwork for her, since I am local here and I can go down there and annoy them every single day until they give it to us. That's what I'm going to do until they can get it to the family. It shouldn't have to be this hard.
Should not be this hard. It should just be like, hey, I'm sorry for your loss. Here is everything we have. We are working. If you find out anything, you let us know. And if we find out anything, we'll let you know. Let's keep an open communication with the families. That is, I think, the bare minimum. I get it. The public can ruin an investigation. But obviously, none of the family members are a suspect in Jason's death. They were
Exactly.
all the way across the country or all the way across the world. So
yes,
they should be able to know.
Precisely. Just by listening to our content, you too are advocating for justice for these families. Thank you for making a difference in their lives as well.
We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $1 per month, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue traveling state by state, seeking justice, because we will be there, no matter where,
no matter who.